One. Again, welcome and thank you for joining us, Jennifer Woofter, who is running for House District 52. And again, thank you for being here. My name is Barry Butler, Director of Government Relations for the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance. And this is, she were the other candidate running in House District 52. And again, we have seven legislative districts total, 8 state senate districts, and 4 House of Delegates districts that touch on the 4-county region and the city of Lynchburg. And this was, we felt that this was going to be the best possible way for people in this region, especially our business community, to get a chance to interact and listen to the candidates. And I want to introduce my co-interviewer, Ann. And Ann, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, Jennifer. My name is Ann McVeigh. I am a financial advisor at Davenport and Company, located in downtown Lynchburg. I am a former board member of the Business Alliance, and I am still a member of the Government Relations Committee. So I still stay in touch with that. So that's what brings me here, and welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Ann. And so this is going to be a 30-minute, approximately 30 minutes. As before, we've sent the questions. We prepared these questions out to every candidate, regardless of if they agreed to interview or not. But all the candidates have the same set of questions. We probably won't be able to get to all of them, but we will certainly try to get to as many as possible. And so just to go ahead and kick it off, we're going to start with the first 2 questions. And Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional experience, and your connection to the 52nd House of Delegates district that you're running for?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Jennifer Woofter. I'm your Democratic candidate for the House of Delegates election coming up this fall for the city of Lynchburg and the little slice of Campbell. I'm a mom. I'm a small business owner. I'm a community advocate. My first job actually was working in the U.S. Senate Committee on Governmental Affairs for the Republicans, where my job was to identify instances of fraud, waste, and abuse in the federal government. And in a single year, we identified $33 billion worth of misspending in the federal government. And what I learned through that experience is that most of the time, misspending is not maliciously intentful fraud. Often it is just because our government programming is not structured in a way for great accountability. There are duplicative programs. We pay when we shouldn't. There are a number of reasons. And so 20 years later, I have brought that lesson with me, that it is not enough just to fund the things we care about, but it is really important to structure our program so that we are getting the bang for the buck that we deserve as taxpayers. Today, I run a sustainability consulting company. I help mostly large companies navigate very complex environmental and social challenges in a way that drives profitability for them. Yeah, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about my community involvement. I've sat on a number of boards, including the Arts Council. I just finished up a 2-year stint as the co-president of the League of Women Voters. And since 2018, I've sat on Lynchburg City Schools Equity Task Force.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for that. And then the next question, thinking about the 52nd House Delegates District. If you're elected, what will be your legislative priorities?
Yeah, there's a million things I care about, but if we have to summarize it to just the top priorities, I think it's 4 things. Number 1, making sure we have great public schools where we are investing in kids, in teachers, and staff to promote lifelong learning. My second priority is smart economic development by finding ways to drive growth, but in a way that is good for families and for the environment. I believe there is a win-win path forward. My third priority is safer neighborhoods, that is safer streets, safer communities, so that our families can focus on other things rather than is it okay for their kids to be playing in the front yard. And my last number 4 priority is just protecting our fundamental rights, fighting against this extremist rhetoric that seems to be so prevalent today, really focusing on finding that shared values and common humanity. I think there's a way back from the polarization, and I think that by doing that, it's better for our community.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for that introduction and answering those first two questions. And the next couple of questions are kind of going to come from Ann.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we move on to education and workforce, which, I can tell is near and dear to your heart. And it's clearly one of the Business Alliance's priorities with all of the membership that we've got. So thinking about K through 12 education and addressing the attraction and retention of public school teachers, what are some things that can be done through the General Assembly to help localities improve teacher retention and attraction?
I'm so glad you asked this question. I think at the beginning, we have to start by increasing teacher pay. Even though our teachers have had several pay increases over the last couple of years, they are still significantly under earning similarly credentialed professionals in Virginia who work in other fields. It's just not cost competitive to be a teacher. We also need to be making sure that class size is reasonable, and then we need to make sure that there is funding at the state level available to get our teachers trained and certified. And I also just want to acknowledge that teachers want to teach, but we are asking them today to do too much. We need to be making sure that there is adequate support staff around those teachers, whether that's behavioral coaches, guidance counselors, nurses, social workers, cafeteria staff, instructional assistants, custodians. I mean, all of those people that are involved in making sure that there is a great learning environment for our kids. I think a great example here is that the recommendation for good student learning is that there is one school counselor for every 250 students. Virginia has a caseload of one counselor for every 328 students. And in Lynchburg, that number is one counselor for every 397 students. That is a ratio that just does not support good student learning.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Why don't we move on and, from the teachers and thinking about the students, what are some things that can be done to improve literacy and math proficiency in our district?
Yeah, I was just recently looking at the numbers, and it looks like here in the city of Lynchburg, and the counties are a little bit different, but overall, what we're looking at is largely a math proficiency of about 50% and a reading proficiency of about 60%. And those numbers are very closely tied to poverty and also race. Since 2018, I've been a member of the Lynchburg City Schools Equity Task Force. And across those years, what I've heard from school administrators and parents and teachers and community members is that while we need great teachers, we also need more intervention outside of the primary classroom in order to close the achievement gap. That means more mentorships, more opportunities for students to work one-on-one with reading and math specialists, and a greater focus, especially on those early years. We know from multiple studies that if a child is behind in reading or math by third grade, it becomes increasingly difficult for them to catch up as they move through those higher grades. So early intervention is absolutely essential. I think that one of the best opportunities is to look at more public-private partnerships to provide more opportunity for intervention. And that's actually a place where we can look to the Lynchburg region as a place that is getting it right in many aspects. I think about Jubilee Center's after-school tutoring program, Beacon of Hope's mentorship programs, Vector Space has youth programming around STEM education. These are all places where we see nonprofits, businesses, and schools coming together to invest in our kids. And I think we need more of that in order to close this achievement gap over time.
Well said. How about turning to the taxpayer? How should the Commonwealth of Virginia invest taxpayer dollars to improve our K through 12 educational system with the goal of creating well-trained and skilled workforces? So what are some creative ideas to improve that K through 12 system in your mind?
Yeah. Well, we just talked about public-private partnerships, which I think are absolutely essential. But let me answer this question as a mom of 3 teenagers who have gone through elementary school, middle school, and now are in high school in Lynchburg City Schools. I think we have great teachers. I think we have great staff. I think we have a number of really cool extracurricular activities. But I think there's a couple things that we could improve on. Number one is that we have a lot of programming on specialty career tracks. So there's an automotive program for high school students. There's if you're interested in a medical career, there's sort of an intro to medical careers class that you can take. My kids have tried to get into those for the last couple of years, and there simply has not been availability in those classes. We offer the programs, but they're just not, they're just beyond capacity. So I think looking at capacity is one thing. The second thing is, and if you have teenagers in your life, you may experience this as well. Sometimes there is a lackluster engagement in learning. And I think that, whatever we can do to make it feel more tangible. I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations around geometry I've been having the last couple of months about, like, when will I ever use this in my real life? Providing those connections and helping our kids really understand why we're learning, how you might apply it, what the value is in the real world. And again, this is a place where I think those public-private partnerships come into play. Getting more businesses into the classroom through career days or job fairs, and getting our students out into businesses, whether that is field trips or apprenticeships or job shadowing. I think the places where I've seen my kids get really excited is when we talk about the cool things that grownups get to do in their jobs, whether it's engineering or coding or design or art. When they see how that might impact their lives, I think they get excited, and I think that's an opportunity for us here.
Okay.
That's a great answer. Go ahead, Barry.
All right. So we definitely can hear the passion in your voice about education and experiential learning. So I want to touch on, basically career tech, thinking about post-high school educational and training opportunities. What are some ways to address the affordability aspect of college and workforce readiness programs and ensuring that all young adults, so regardless of income, physical ability, race, have access to education and job training opportunities?
Yeah. So my husband and I have been foster parents, and now I continue to volunteer in the foster care system as a court-appointed special advocate, or a CASA, where I'm assigned to a specific family going through the foster care system, and I get to be an advocate for those children. And I think that experience, volunteering and seeing the foster care system sort of from the inside, has given me such a view into how hard it is to navigate our systems. I have worked with some teens in the foster care system, and getting them to think about their future, getting them to see the opportunity, but then actually logistically walking them through that process has been incredibly cumbersome. We need to make it easier to navigate the FAFSA applications, the Pell Grants. These are so complicated. We need to be looking for ways that we can streamline the process. And we can look to examples like Beacon of Hope's career centers about ways that we can be lowering barriers to make sure that every kid, regardless of income, race, family situation, not only sees the opportunity, but has someone holding their hand through it, because they're not adults yet, right? We, the adults in the room, need to be making sure that we are hand holding them through that. I've been really impressed, particularly with programs that focus on the intersection of high demand jobs and people who have been traditionally excluded. I'm thinking specifically about Vector Space's Women in Machining program. That was Vector Space, our nonprofit, partnered with the city of Lynchburg and a dozen other nonprofits and companies like BWXT to take a group of women who had the cards stacked against them and who were not naturally going to see themselves as going into the machine trades, and takes them through an intensive program, but with a lot of support, provided childcare, provided transportation, really lowering those barriers to put these women directly into the machine trades, which is an area we need a lot more qualified workers in.
All right. Well, thank you for that answer. And so thinking about that in a way that, want to dig a little deeper into next question I want to ask you is, like, how can we provide additional support to our school counselors and teachers to present all possible pathways, college track and skilled trades? Because one of the things that we have been experiencing and the feedback we're getting is that there's definitely a bias towards pushing college in the four-year track versus the skilled trade. So what are some additional ways that we can support our counselors and teachers to present all possibilities.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to hear me just say the same stuff. Number one, we need to make sure that our school counselors have fewer students assigned to them. This idea of expecting a single counselor to help 397 students each year through that process, it's unrealistic, and it's blaming the school for not doing a good enough job when we do not provide them with adequate resources, I think is a fundamental problem. But again, you're going to hear me talk about public-private partnerships, right? Getting businesses into the schools to talk about it, getting students out of the classroom into job shadowing, more career days. And I think also helping to facilitate internships and apprenticeships. It's not enough just to help a kid fill out an application to work at a place, you know, after they're done. It's not enough just to sort of send them over to CVCC and say, here's the classes you should take. What we need to be doing is including the businesses so that they are involved in internships and apprenticeships, which in many cases provide paid work to those students as they're learning. And particularly for our lower income students, or in places where there may be more financial hardship, that bridge money can really make the difference between sticking out a longer term training program and finding that it's just better to go to McDonald's and get a low wage job, but that's paying immediately.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll move on to some of the other topics that we want to touch on. Keeping in mind that the Lynchburg area is home to probably the highest concentration of private higher ed institutions in the state. Thinking about the Virginia Tuition Assistance Grant, otherwise known as Virginia TAG, as private colleges and universities are economic drivers of our region, how will you support the TAG program if elected and going forward?
Yeah, so the TAG program is hugely important. For people who might not be aware, the TAG program allows our private colleges to offer more affordable and accessible pathways to higher education. And for our students locally, but also drawing in students from out of the region who are looking for a smaller, more intimate classroom setting, or for those students who are looking for a specialty program not offered by our state schools, the TAG program can open doors that would otherwise be shut. And absolutely, as you say, the TAG program helps our local economy, whether it's Liberty, I think is the largest user maybe user is not the right word, but the largest participant in the TAG program, but also Randolph, University of Lynchburg, even Sweetbriar in part of our larger region. They employ a lot of people and they drive a lot of economic activity. The TAG program is a key element of that success. We have to have the students there for the school to do well. When the school does well, a lot of financial activity and economic activity goes directly into our local communities. That program just needs to be continuously funded, and we need to be making sure that that our schools are able and well positioned to help students navigate through that program.
Thank you. And
why don't we shift over to just a different category under military and veteran affairs? What are some ways the Commonwealth of Virginia can encourage veterans and military families to stay in Virginia and connect them to education, training, or straight to civilian careers?
Yeah. So my dad was in the Navy for most of his 30+ year career. And so I have quite a lot of experience with thinking about like military life, but also post-military life. The military actually does a fairly good job of providing support to service members exiting active duty. There's job training, there's connections to local employers, there's sort of debriefing, there's even some counseling sometimes. But at some point that military support ends and the community sort of needs to pick up the slack on that. One of the biggest challenges we have is a lack of well-coordinated services. When military members and their families find themselves in civilian life, it's often sometimes a little bit of a culture shock or maybe just a different way of living. And we need to make sure that our mental health services, our housing services, our childcare services are well positioned to meet them where they are. And whether that's walking them through financial assistance, whether it is helping them navigate, selecting among different service providers. There is sort of a partnership piece that needs to happen there. And then, of course, I think we would be remiss not to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the VA, which provides a lot of services to military members and post-military, and has been riddled with bureaucracy, with challenges around service delivery. For years and years, it has been a challenge to try to clean up the VA, making it easier to access, making it easier to coordinate across services. That is absolutely an area that it's a big challenge, but one that is really important. And then finally, I want to give like a little fist bump to Republican Governor Youngkin. I think it's okay to acknowledge when the other side scores a win. I really like the way Youngkin focuses on competencies rather than only looking at educational pathways. We have people in the military is a great example where they will train you and you will have years of experience, but you may not have the credentials or the licensure in the place you end up as you exit active duty. We need to be looking at ways to not lower standards, but find ways to connect our post-service military families with the experience and competency into being able to get certified or licensed quickly, sort of a fast pass, recognizing that lived experience does count for something, including in alternate pathways.
That's a great answer. Thank you. How about we just move on to housing and childcare? I feel like you'll have some passions here. The rising cost and availability of childcare is impacting the available labor force, leaving many families struggling to find affordable childcare or deciding to leave the workforce and stay at home with their children. Do you think the state has a role to play in solving this problem? And what are some ways the state can help address this issue in our district?
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago, you know, when you're running for office, people send you all sorts of information to try to help you understand an issue. And I just recently saw the results of a poll of Virginia employers. And the thing that jumped out at me was that 76% of Virginia employers polled said that access to childcare was significantly impacting their ability to recruit and retain employees. We need to step away from thinking about childcare as a woman's issue or a family issue. This is very clearly a workforce issue. And it's a problem here in the Lynchburg region. Lynchburg itself is a childcare desert. There are waiting lists of up to a year for high quality infant care. There's a variety of things that need to happen in order to solve this problem. The question is, what role does the state have to play? And here I really want to talk about potentially expanding access to the child care subsidy program. That's a program already in place. It helps eligible families pay for child care, allowing parents or caregivers to work or search for work or participate in education and training, and for children to get high quality early learning opportunities through that program. Expanding access. So there's an income requirement right now. We could raise the income restrictions to give access to that subsidy program to more families. We could also increase the size of the subsidy itself. Sometimes the subsidy in and of itself is not enough to offset the cost of childcare, which I'll tell you, as 3 teenagers, I still have a little PTSD of thinking about the cost of childcare that we paid before they were in school full time. I think we can, in addition, provide some incentives for the creation of new childcare businesses, particularly supporting education and training for childcare providers. We don't just need more daycare slots. We need high quality, certified, trained childcare providers. And then also looking at ways to support the development of the physical infrastructures for safe childcare facilities. It's not just enough to have the people. We need the buildings themselves as well to be available and ready to meet the capacity needs.
Okay. Barry, we're getting up against time. Can we do one business climate question?
We might be able to get 2 in there.
All right.
Yeah. How about you want to take the first one and then?
How about How about what are some ways to streamline the current infrastructure permitting process to support greater efficiency while maintaining the existing strong uniform standards?
Yeah, I think there's two places to focus. The first one is just reducing bureaucracy. Up until last year, there was no easy way for permit applicants or the public to track the progress of permit applications through state agencies. And this bureaucracy caused project delays, increased project costs, cancellation of some of our most vital infrastructure projects, and higher investment barriers. In this past December, Virginia launched a new platform at VDEQ, that's the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, to streamline and provide transparency on the permitting process. So they're directly tackling that. This new platform is providing current information about once a permit application goes, is submitted, it provides information about all the different steps and the schedules associated with obtaining approvals. So that means that the applicants, the agency staff, and also the public will be able to access information about pending permits online in real time. That's a great start. What will really be a game changer is integrating other permitting programs across the entire state government so that we can see at a glance all of the different moving pieces, whether that's environmental, construction, licensing, community impact, fire safety. I mean, there's a million different permits that you have to go through, and it can be really challenging to stay on top of it in a way that meets your budget and your timeline constraints. So I think just overall programs like that are a great opportunity. And the second thing is that we can look at specific places where permitting is getting hung up and address those directly. I think a great example here is one that just got resolved this past year. HB 1752 was passed unanimously in the House. Both sides can come together on common sense solutions. It was signed by the governor. And basically, it looked at the permitting bureaucracy between getting high-speed broadband across railroad lines. And it's places like that where there's intersecting agencies and jurisdictions like broadband and rail, that where they overlap, that is where some of the most cumbersome bureaucracy sits. It slows the projects down, it increases costs. And so this one specifically was addressing speeding up the permitting process, making the process clearer, less expensive, and more expedient for all of the parties involved. And so I think we can look broadly about streamlining, but I think we can also take a faster look at some of those poor places where just really surgical intervention can make a big difference.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. There are definitely a couple more wanted to get to, but I thought this one's going to be very relevant to you. Entrepreneurship, small business. What are some barriers that are impeding small business growth and entrepreneurship, and how can these barriers be removed or minimized?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm a successful small business owner. And have had occasion to shake my fist at the system and how difficult it sometimes can be to be a successful small business owner. But because of my experience, I've also had the privilege to work with our local small business development center as a business advisor to other small businesses facing similar challenges. And I've also been a facilitator for Co-Starters, which is a national program that we offer here in the Lynchburg region to help entrepreneurs who are thinking about a business idea test it out in a safe place before they make the formal jump to actually becoming an entrepreneur. And through my own experience, but also what I have seen from other small businesses and other aspiring entrepreneurs, is that what we have as a missing middle is that there's quite a lot of programs and support if you're very, very small. And there's a lot of support if you are already a successful small business looking to grow or make the jump. Some of the biggest barriers, though, are going from a single person entrepreneur or a very, very small micro business, your first handful of employees, to something that would truly be making, multi-million dollars in revenues, becoming a real driver of economic growth in our community. There's a couple of key things. Number one is that there's missing bridge financing. If you need $500, you can kind of go crowdfund that from your friends and family. If you have already a building and equipment that you can use as collateral, you can go get a bank loan. But for those people kind of in the middle who don't own real assets that they can use as collateral, who are, the question is, if you want to get a loan, you better co-sign your house that's a really scary thing and impedes the ability of our micro businesses to grow into thriving small businesses. I think that is a key area that I think doesn't take that much money, but is a different way of looking at how do we grow that ecosystem of entrepreneurs in a way that, you know, drives jobs, drives taxes, and really provides a thriving economy.
All right. Well, we're definitely coming up on time right now, and so just for you to be respectful of yours, give you another minute or two to any closing thoughts and anything else that comes to mind.
I think it's really important for people to know that this year's election is different because of redistricting. In prior years, over the last 10 plus years, because of redistricting, Lynchburg was divided into 2 House of Delegates districts and 2 state Senate districts. And what that meant was that Lynchburg, the city of Lynchburg's political power was diluted. We were small constituencies in largely rural districts. This year, because of redistricting, we're back into 1 district. And what it means is that we really have an opportunity to elect someone who understands and is prioritizing the challenges that we are facing here in Lynchburg. And I hope people understand that this election is different, and it's a big opportunity to choose something different if that's what we want.
Jennifer, thank you so much, and good luck out there on the campaign trail. And again,
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks,
right.
Barry. Thanks,
Yeah,
Ann.
and so again, good luck out there, and thank you for your time.